Hey, true crime fans! Tired of ads interrupting your gripping investigations? Good news! With Amazon Music, you have access to the largest catalog of ad-free top podcasts included with your Prime membership. After all, ads shouldn't be the scariest thing about true crime. To start listening, download the Amazon Music app for free or go to amazon.com/ad-free true crime. That's amazon.com/ad-free true crime to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
It took a lifetime to find the person you want to marry. Finding the perfect engagement ring is a lot easier. At BlueNile.com, you can find or design the ring you've always dreamed of with help from Blue Nile's jewelry experts who are on hand 24/7 to answer questions. And the ease and convenience of shopping online. For a limited time, get $50 off your purchase of $500 or more with code LISTEN at BlueNile.com. That's $50 off with code LISTEN at BlueNile.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of D-List Diaries. We have a very special episode for you today because Gina is on a cruise and she would not get the Wi-Fi to call in and do this podcast, but we have my wonderful husband, Chris, to join Kirsten and I today. So hello, Chris.
Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Missed you guys from last time, but glad to be on again.
Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you.
We wanted to bring Kristen today because, like most of you, I'm sure, we binge watched the new season of Love is Blind, and the first six episodes, and we wanted to give you our opinion on it because we have a lot. And we always say it's really fun watching reality shows with people who have been on reality shows, so this is your chance to do that. And if you haven't watched, we will be giving away spoilers, so this is your official warning. But if you haven't watched, go watch and then listen because the next set of episodes is about to drop. So you'll be ready to go.
Okay, I'm not ready to go. And I can't believe y'all watched 7 episodes. And I was supposed to come over to y'all's house and watch all these episodes with y'all in the backyard, which did not happen because I got beat by the heat. And so did y'all this past weekend. So I feel like it's so much to unpack on the first episode. It's so much.
I mean, it was a lot to handle because I feel like they show so many couples this time where the last few seasons, I feel like they only focus on 4 and then they'll throw in like a 5th, maybe a 6th. But this time there's really 7 couples, right, that they follow for the first few episodes.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot more couples this episode that they wanted to kind of follow their story. It was kind of interesting to see where they were going with it and see which couples they were ultimately going to choose. But yeah, no, I mean, it was pretty interesting to start. There wasn't a ton of drama, but there was one kind of love triangle. Other than that, I mean, it was pretty much straightforward.
Funny you say that. So this is actually want to start, and Kirsten, I would love to hear your opinion on this. Well, both of you, obviously, but Chris said there wasn't a ton of drama, and it leads me to my favorite question of, am I the problem? Like, are we the assholes here? Because there wasn't a ton of drama, or there hasn't been a ton of drama this season so far, and it was kind of boring. So I sit there and say that, you know, it shouldn't be drama-filled. We want to follow love. But last season was just drama, and I wasn't really happy with that, but it was a lot more entertaining. And these first few episodes were kind of snooze-festy, but the upcoming episodes look drama-filled and entertaining. So am I the problem? Am I the reason that they keep making these shitty situations that are producer-driven so we can be entertained?
All right, Nicole. So I do feel like you are the problem, unfortunately, because I do not like to see drama. Well, I don't like to see drama on shows where it's about dating and love. I like for people to be serious and still have a good time and still have meaningful conversations and meaningful connections. And it can still be, you know, some type of fun in there. But I feel like that was my last statement in my comment as I was taking notes while I was watching the first episode, because Hannah was, you know, so stressed out about her decision about Nick. And she was in a triangle between Nick and Leo. And so she had to make a decision. And then when Nick and Leo were sitting together at the table, Nick was like, well, Hannah's my number one. And I think that's why this show starts to stress me out. I start to get stressed out instantly because I forgot that it's almost like a dating competition in a sense, right? Because if somebody likes the same person, now you're competing. And so Leo was upset when Nick expressed how much he liked Hannah, and then Hannah goes into the pod and tell Nick that it's not going to work out. I was like, oh my gosh. And then another woman walked in and said that she was highly interested in Leo when Hannah walked in. So I was like, okay, here goes the drama, right? That was drama for me. And I also got stressed out.
Keep watching because the drama unfolds with them. But Chris, what do you think?
Well, I'll say I think this season there's a lot more of talking about who they're dating in the pods. It seems like not initially, but then when it like first came out from Brittany that she was talking to like Leo and some other people, it just was really interesting that it kind of came out then, and then they kind of just talk about it. But I will say at the same time, there have been some that have been very respectful. Like it was Rams and that other guy. But when they were talking, they were very respectful about it, knowing that they both had the same number one. And it was kind of nice. Like they didn't really have any beef or anything like that. They're just like kind of made the best man win, and they were very respectful about it. So I don't know. I'm hopeful though, because last season was such a dumpster fire. Like I would like to see some couples actually make it this year.
I mean, there's a lot of potential. And I don't know. I keep saying that if I were in the pods, I would be keeping my cards close to my chest. Is that the saying? And I wouldn't tell anyone who my number one is because I would want it to be between me and him. But at the same time, what if I had a number one and someone else had him as a number one and I didn't know and he's telling us the same thing? So I feel like I don't actually know what I would do. But you're right, Chris. I do think they were talking a lot more this time about who they were interested in. And I wonder if they were actually talking about it more or if we were just shown a lot more of that because it was advantageous for the storyline.
That and that Leo has money.
Ugh. Well, clearly, since that's the only thing he wants to freaking talk about. I'm getting all heated. Did you really see enough of Leo in the first episode? Because I could do an entire podcast. I have an entire section of my notes devoted to him because he gives me the ultimate ick, and he's the problem, not me. Leo is the problem.
Okay, I did see a lot about Leo on the first episode, and I was turned off immediately because at first, when he was representing himself, he was saying that he didn't want women to date him because of his fortune and everything that he inherited from all of his family members who passed away from cancer. And I'm like, well, it sounds like he began to highlight the fact that he was very wealthy and, financially stable. So I was a little confused. I was a little taken back because I'm like, okay, you say you don't want women to be interested in you because you have so much money, supposedly. And now you're out here talking about all the money you have and letting people try on your Rolex and, just doing the absolute most. So I was like, Leo, okay, have a seat, have several seats at this point. But I feel like if he was to put all of that aside and just continue to be himself, and not talk about his fortune, he would be okay.
I mean, I will say that I have to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and he might have only talked about his money a few times, and they chose to show it every single time, but you can't even see these people. They don't see what you're wearing. They don't see your Rolex. He could have had every conversation in that pod and not brought up his money once. But when you lead with, well, women usually date me for my money, but I don't want that, that immediately makes people think you have money. So even if that's not something a woman cares about, you've already put it out there. So I feel like he just wanted to find someone who did want him for his money, but was saying he didn't. And also, I want to see his bank statements because if he's going to come up in here and say that he's some rich guy and women only want him for his money, blah, 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 like, show me the receipts.
Period.
You didn't get to this part, but this had us rolling our eyes when he was talking to Hannah and Brittany. Thank you. He would end every date with mwah, 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 mwah. Do it. You do it better.
Yeah, you do that mwah, 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 mwah. It's like the mwah,
Ugh.
like the kisses, and it was just so cringy.
So cringy.
And I don't know.
Could you imagine, Kirsten, if you got off the phone with your man and he was like, bye, Kirsten, mwah, 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 mwah.
It's so funny because I do that to my man. Like sometimes if we're on FaceTime, I'm like, and I'm like, do it back, babe, do it back. So I'm probably just as obnoxious as Leo.
But you're a girl and you know him. You know your man.
Okay, that's true.
But yeah, still kind of weird. I'm not going to waste time on him because he just is so irritating, but he gives me the ick. And Brittany and Leo end up getting engaged, and you can see her look of sheer disappointment when she sees him. And I heard, so they only follow 6 couples on the honeymoon and beyond, and there were 7 couples that they showed get engaged, and they chose not to follow Brittany and Leo. And when I say I heard, I mean I saw on Instagram someone said that it leaked. The producers said they only had the budget for 6 couples, so they chose not to follow their story because they were least likely to actually get married, and which is true. I mean, they broke up like right after, but that's the couple I want to see because they were destined to be a dumpster fire. And I don't believe that Netflix and Kinetic did not have the budget for one more couple.
That is so funny you say that. I love when people like spill all the tea because who even knew that they didn't have the budget? I feel like they probably just didn't want to spend their money on following them. Because like you said, that would have been a great story to follow because it gives you like the drama, the edge, and everything people want to see that's going on. But I can see Brittany not liking Leo.
I also saw that the producers, they saw a lot of kind of like sexual predator in him.
I could see that. He looks
so
creepy.
because he was, when they did the whole reveal, he was just very overbearing and like holding her aggressively. Honestly, he had his hand around her neck, like pulling her face towards his, and it reminded me of that scene from something about, or forgetting Sarah Marshall, when he's like, "Don't pull my face toward your face." Like it was really, really cringy and weird.
Yeah, that sounds like it. And I always think that's so cringe when people are like sticking their tongues down each other's throats. Because I was watching Love is Blind UK, and like the girl, she kept giving the guy like a peck, but he was just like French kissing her. And I don't feel like she wanted him to French kiss her. So that was very uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, he was definitely very creepy. And of course, she's beautiful. So I think he was like, oh my God, she's way more beautiful than I could have imagined. But it was so creepy. And Leo, you might be a nice guy, and maybe I'm judging you based on your edit, but yeah.
Poor Leo. Poor Leo. But I did have hope for, I don't know. I feel like Nick was kind of like a playboy. And when him and Hannah, when they were having their conversation, I feel like he started to get serious. And I'm like, well, Nick, you probably should have started off more serious. And I know it's kind of hard to find the balance when you're talking to so many people and you're getting to know one another and what type of conversation you want to have. Do you want to have an emotional conversation? Do you want to have a fun conversation? Or do you want to have a very intentional conversation? So it's so many ways that you can like have some type of discussion and dialogue with one another. Like even just thinking about you and Chris's dialogue throughout the entire season, like I feel like y'all had such great conversations every single time you guys filmed, whether it was something serious or whether it was something fun. Like you guys always had meaningful conversations. But I feel like Nick, he was just in there, joking and playing around at first. And then once he saw that Hannah was seriously coming down on him and asking him serious questions, he was like, oh my gosh, what's happening here?
I would say I'm very mixed on Nick. He's giving me like he's in it for the right reasons. Like at first I thought maybe he was doing it for the fame and things like that, but I don't know. After I kind of saw him more and more, he does seem like he's in it for the right reasons, and he kept saying he was. So like I want to trust and believe what he's saying is true. And he did seem very happy that he ended up with Hannah.
Wait, he ended up with Hannah?
Kirsten, we're going to give away spoilers because that's the point of this episode. So you have to accept the fact that you did not complete your assignment of watching all the episodes, and you're just going to have to live with it. But
I'm sad.
Usually I'm pretty spot on with judging people from the start. And I had so much faith in Hannah. I was like, oh, she's young, but she doesn't seem young. She's really conflicted, but she's handling it the best she can. And on this honeymoon, she seems to hate Nick, and she seems to be looking for reasons why she doesn't like him. And I feel like, honestly, I feel like they're both too immature for this process, but I feel like his immaturity is just, he's a dumb boy. Like,
Yeah,
he's
he will.
sweet, he's well-meaning, but he's just a boy who needs a woman to really train him. And with her, it seems like her immaturity is coming from a place where she doesn't understand that marriage means compromise, and you're not going to like everything about someone's personality, but you have to kind of work with it. She feels very judgmental towards him, right? Like she's faulting him for every little thing he does. And I don't like that about her, because I feel like that's not a really healthy way to be in a relationship. Like, she's villainizing. That's what's the word I'm looking for? Vilifying. Vilifying. You're like my dictionary today. Thank you. She's vilifying him for things that are so silly. So she literally wrote out a list of all the things that she didn't like about Nick and left it for him to see, versus having a conversation with him and being upfront and saying, like, hey, these are the things that are bothering me. I'm not sure if it's just you being nervous, or I don't know you yet, but I'd love to get in front of them. But she left the list for him to see.
I would honestly be pretty upset if I found a list, because I think that's just getting kind of petty and getting kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
You are who you are. So to have a list about things that you don't like about someone, it's pretty extreme.
Especially versus a conversation. Like, if you came home and just saw the list with no context, you'd be like, what the heck?
Yeah, I mean, I would be totally caught off guard by that and think that it's just extremely petty. And it's almost like, why are you even with me if you're creating a list of potentially pros and cons? Probably mostly cons is my guess. I mean, that's what it seemed like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Let me ask the ladies out there and listeners. I mean, what do you think about this? Do you guys make lists on your dating choices?
I've absolutely written pros and cons lists, with all the men that I used to have to choose through, but more for myself to really see, like, okay, what are the things that I actually like about this person? What are the things I don't like? Is it all in my head? But I would never write a list and give it or leave it for a guy to read and be like, here. It's so juvenile.
I mean, I feel like if you have to write a list, you're doing too much.
Yeah, I think they should just make the minimum age 30. Like, maybe that would help. I don't know. What do you guys think? You think it's the age thing or just the emotional maturity in general?
I feel like 30 is definitely a great cutoff. I do feel like when I was 26 and I was in a serious relationship, we would have our highs and our lows, and I feel like it was a little difficult.
I feel like this season is focusing a lot more on not caring what people look like. I mean, a lot of the people have specifically said that they don't care what they look like. It is interesting, though, because I feel like the younger people, especially like Hannah, does actually care about what the person looks like, because she seemed pretty upset and disappointed with how Nick looks. She was thinking he was going to be a big, bulky football player, and by no means is he like too small or anything like that. He's just a smaller guy than what he gave out there. So I think the younger crowd, and Hannah is part of that, does care more about appearances. So I would agree that they definitely should make the maybe 28 to 30 and above.
Speaking of looks, and I know this is going to be a little mean maybe, but I feel like we call the show Love is Blind because you're falling in love with someone through a wall. You don't see them. You don't know what they look like, but 99% of the people on the show are good looking. Maybe not tens, supermodels, but it's very rare that someone on the show is not good looking. So I feel like it's easy to let yourself fall in love with someone through a pod when you know there's a very good chance they're going to be good looking. And I want to see some others. And I know me, I would say I'm like a solid 7, maybe 7.5 on a good day. And I was getting the most bullying online for my looks. And I can't imagine someone who does not identify as anything more than a 4 or 5 would have, a good experience online. So why would they sign up for this? But it's so easy to say, I'm going to fall in love blindly when the person on the other end is likely going to be good looking. So I don't know. Like, what do you think, Chris? You think you would feel better knowing the other person is likely good looking because you've seen 6 seasons of this show prior?
All said and done, I think looks do matter to a lot of people. I mean, you obviously, this show is interesting because you get to know somebody for their personality and just talking through a wall to them. I mean, it's almost like online dating without actually, when you're just messaging back with and forth with somebody and stuff like that, and really getting to know them, but you're actually talking to the person. So I don't know. I feel like looks do matter to an extent, but I feel like, especially this season, I mean, I feel like they don't care as much. And yes, I agree, most of these people are very attractive. But again, I think it's kind of a tricky situation. I see what you're saying about definitely getting to know somebody beyond that. And I think that's what it tries to accomplish. But at the same time, I think also when they cast, they try to cast certain personality types. And maybe they're just not getting it from, as you called it, the uggos.
And I don't say that to be mean, but truly, like, I remember when we were doing interviews before we got married, and our producer said, they were trying to make me nervous. I'm like, oh, well, how would you feel if he's ugly, this and that? And one of the other producers pulled me aside and she was like, you've seen this show before. You know that even the least attractive person is going to be decently attractive. So you don't have to worry about a true troll like coming down or standing at the end of the aisle. And I know there are people who are not your type. We've said it before, like, we're not each other's traditional type, but we're both, I think, very attractive. So it doesn't hurt. And there are people on this show when we watch, I'll say to you, like, oh, if I saw that guy out at a bar or on an app, I wouldn't find him attractive, but I could see myself finding him attractive if I had already fallen in love with him, quote unquote, through a wall. So I struggle because I want to see more diversity in the looks. Like, I want them to stop asking the 2 women who are not stick figures if they think weight is going to be an issue, and if they're afraid their fiance or whatever they're calling them is going to, be not attracted to them because they're not a size 0. It's like, most women are not a size 0. So I find it a little frustrating that we're focusing on the weight of the 2 women that they allow to be, over 150 pounds or whatever it is. Maybe that's my own insecurities talking. Who knows?
I mean, I get it. It's part of, we went through it. Like, they focus on certain things that they think are going to be insecurities or potential issues, and they kind of just highlight it, and they have the people talk about it. I mean, they probably had those girls talk about a lot more things than just the weight stuff, but all they showed was them talking about the weight stuff. They could have been talking about other things too, on top of that. So again, you just don't know because you're really only seeing about 5% of what is actually filmed.
Well, that's fair. Kirsten, I would love to know your thoughts on the looks issue. I mean, you also went into a show knowing that you might not find your husband attractive, but he would still likely be an attractive person overall. So what do you think in terms of the fact that majority of these people are considered good looking?
I honestly feel that it is a bonus when people have, good features externally. I think it's amazing. But, with this show being the fact that it's called Love is Blind, you don't know what the partner looks like. I feel like they do a great job with selecting the cast. They have selected some pretty handsome men for this show and some beautiful women. And a lot of people that they actually select for this show are beautiful inside too. And I just love to hear the background of different people's stories and their journeys of life, because that's also what shapes and molds a person into who they are today. So I honestly feel that, when people are attracted to someone inside and out, it's a beautiful thing, because watching the show and they get to meet each other in person, finally they're like, oh my gosh, some people are so like shocked that the other person is handsome or that the other person is beautiful. And so I just love to see it. But I do feel like when you gain an emotional connection with someone, I feel like some people may be okay if they're not 100% physically attracted to another person. And our process is the total opposite, right? Because you don't know what the person looks like. You do not have any clue of who they are, what they represent, where they come from. It's just a total stranger. So it's like you don't even get to build that foundation, of communication with them. So it's like now you're meeting someone at the altar who you may or may not be physically attracted to, which also can determine how you're going to be open to the process of making the relationship work. So it's interesting.
I feel like each episode of this show could have its own podcast episode, and especially the way we talk. And this is meant to be one episode to recap the first 6. So I feel like we should just kind of go over our main standout moments, highlights, couples. And I think the thing I always go back to when watching the show is if I really believe these couples when they say, I love you in the pod after knowing each other for like 3 days. And truly, I do believe that they believe they're in love because it's so emotionally charged. You don't have any access to the outside world. Your sole job in these pods is to find someone you connect with. And I really do believe them when they say, I love you. But I also feel like we can normalize with this process saying, like, I have strong feelings for you. I'm developing feelings of love. I could see it turning into love. I would love to explore this process with you outside of these pods because I feel like people say, I love you after knowing each other for 2 days. And then they're on the honeymoon and they start to realize they don't actually even like this person. And they're like, I love you. I'm obsessed with you, but I hate everything about you. And it kind of tanks the love word a little bit. And I don't know. I do believe them when they say they're in love, though. I just don't know if they need to be saying it in order to get engaged and get out of these pods because they're not saying yes at the altar. We got married without saying I love you, so they can get engaged without saying it. And that's my official stance.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little phony baloney at times. I think it's also, though, just getting caught up in the moment and kind of feeling a certain way. There is part of me that thinks maybe production has a hand in it, too. Like, hey, you have to fall in love with somebody in order to get out. And we know firsthand how much production puts pressure on the L word. So it is very interesting. And you don't know how many different outside influences are weighing into that. But also this one is interesting too, because I believe some of these people are saying, I love you just so that person will choose them over the other people that they're dating.
Ooh,
because I think that is something that can kind of set them apart. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. I think sometimes that's part of it.
Every day is filled with opportunities to express yourself. And with an everyday piece from Blue Nile, you can do it without saying a word. Blue Nile's collection of diamond jewelry is the ultimate statement with sparkle that elevates any outfit. Or switch things up with a sapphire piece sure to spark conversation. Either way, their diamond guarantee ensures you get the highest quality at the best price. Express yourself with Blue Nile and get up to 30% off at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, what the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass f- So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Though.
It's like, oh, you were going to pick someone else, but I love you. So do you want to marry me instead? I can see that. That's an interesting point.
Well, I mean, not meaning to dog Leo, but he was extremely manipulative in his conversation with Hannah, where he just freaked out and tried to make her make a decision right then and there by saying, if I said I would marry you today, what would you say? Like, that guy was being crazy. So that was already a big, huge red flag with him right away.
Yeah. And then he was like, oh, wait, actually, you and Nick are perfect. So I'm good with you being with him. Like, another Leo moment. But that for me always stands out because I actually appreciated that Brittany was like, I can't say I love you yet because she really didn't feel it yet, but they also broke up a few weeks later. So point proven.
No, but I also thought it was hilarious with her because she basically had a really strong and powerful moment where she stood her ground, told him that he hurt her and that she didn't know how she felt anymore. And then he said a couple kind words and asked her to marry her or marry him. And she was literally like, "Oh, okay. Yes, I'll marry you." Like, it was so weird because it was just like, she seemed so desperate to be married in that moment that he could have done anything and she would have said yes to him. And then obviously there was one of the most awkward reveals of all time that happened after that.
Well, she should have stuck with her gut. But Kirsten, do you think that they're actually meaning it when they say I love you, or you think they're just getting so caught up in the moment and it just comes out?
I think that they get, caught up in the moment. And I feel like love is a really big word. I think that they are liking each other and growing a connection with each other. But I don't know if I don't feel like they truly mean that they love each other. And they say it just so frequently on this show. And I'm like, well, do you actually love this person, or do you feel like you have a deeper connection and you like them more than you expected because of the emotional connection? And so I don't know. I don't feel like they love each other, because I can't say that I'm going to love someone in 10 days just because I'm building a connection with them on the phone or through the wall. That's kind of insane to me. A little bizarre.
No, you're totally right. They do give out I love yous like it's Halloween candy. But that could be said for all of the couples, really. But before we talk about the rest of the couples, I do want to call out that I loved when they all got together on the honeymoon. And usually I don't like this part because I feel like it's just a way to set up drama. And because there were no love triangles in this group of honeymooners, I felt like they were all supportive. They were having fun. They were doing that fun thing of like asking the husbands their intentions. And I thought that was a really nice group activity. And I would love to see more of those versus the ones where they bring back the people they know will be controversial, because that's the kind of drama I don't want to see. Like, I don't want to see you putting people in couples' ways that you know could cause issues. I want to see drama of like you fighting over, dumb little issues of living together and finances and things like that. But I thought that was a really cool group gathering, which you don't often get to see.
Yeah, I mean, I really think Hannah and Nick were the only ones that were kind of awkward because they got in a little argument towards the end there. But overall, yeah, I mean, they all seemed like they were all friends and just having a good time and asking who had sex and who didn't and things like that.
Hot topic always.
But yeah, I mean, I agree.
Kirsten, I know that you are especially not a fan of group gatherings in these situations. So I would love to hear your take on it, because I do feel like this was a different kind of group gathering.
Now, Nicole, you already know how I feel about the group gatherings. Yes, theirs was probably a little bit more comfortable or whatnot, but I always feel like group gatherings for me, like when I don't know people, it's just not what I'm familiar to, because I don't want to express how I'm feeling and what's going on in my relationship, especially with the position that these people are in. You're being filmed, you've been under a pressure cooker. It's just so much to talk about and unfold, and you're still trying to process everything. So no, I am not a fan of group settings.
We all already know how you feel about the group gatherings, but I just like to rally you up a bit. But now to get to the couples, I think we should all give our quick opinion on what we think the future of these couples will be. We'll start with Steven and Monica because they're my favorite so far. I think they are an odd pairing looks-wise and personality-wise, but I think they work because they fell in love in this experience. I think if they met on the outside world, it would not work as much, but I think she got to know deep down Steven, and he saw that she loves and accepts him. I do think she might get annoyed that he's quote-unquote too much, but as someone who's too much, I can say that if it's the right person, they won't ever find you too much. So I hope they don't disappoint me and they say I do at that altar.
Yeah, I like this couple too. I think it's funny that Steven keeps bringing up that he's part black and that he didn't know that. But then with Monica, I mean, she's said she was 36. I think this is a good example of someone who's older that we talked about that really is doing this process for the right reasons, because they were out there dating, weren't able to find what they wanted, doing it the old-fashioned way, so they resorted to these measures. And honestly, I think so far it's working for her and working for him, and I think they're definitely kind of a strong couple to make it to the end.
I'm actually a little skeptical of Steven and Monica's relationship. I know that sometimes on this show, race doesn't play a huge role in some people's relationship, and sometimes it does. And although it seems like they're strong, I am not sure. I'm not 100% certain that they're going to stay married. And if they don't, that's totally okay. I think that they're both amazing people. I think Steven is very attractive. I knew he was handsome. He reminds me of this man that I used to work with. And Monica, she's beautiful, very smart. She seems, like an amazing woman. But I mean, I hope that they're able to stay together if that's truly what they want in their hearts.
The second couple I'd like to talk about is Taylor and Garrett. They were the first engagement, and they're actually surprising me so far because I thought that they would be so methodical and scientific and would be really hard to open up and communicate, but they seem to be really good with communicating their feelings and the I love yous and being all smushy mushy. But they kind of remind me of us a little, Chris, in the sense where they both seem so independent because they live their own lives, they have their careers, they have their routines, they have their apartments. And I feel like for us, one of the biggest learning curves or adjustments was combining two completely independent lives and having to find those compromises, which we actually did a lot more seamlessly than I thought we would. So kudos to us, and I hope they have that same success. But I think that could be their struggle, is that they just can't compromise enough to include each other in their lives, but they seem willing and open. So I have a very good feeling for them or about them, and I hope they don't prove me wrong either.
Yeah, they kind of remind me a lot of the Raleigh couple. I think it was Amy and John or something like
Johnny.
that.
Yeah,
Johnny.
yeah.
They remind me a lot of them. But there was a really cute moment in the reveal when she didn't believe that he was actually 6 foot, and he made a joke about a tape measure. I was like, tell me you're unhinged without actually being unhinged. But
That's fun.
no, I thought that was a really cute moment though. But they just seem like, they kind of make it seem like, oh, is it because they're from different ethnic backgrounds? Is that going to make an issue for them? And I don't really think so with them. I mean, there might be some family stuff that might come up that might be a little tough. And they kind of showed that from the preview. But again, who knows? They seem like they're a pretty strong couple as well, though.
Yeah.
I honestly love that y'all are very optimistic about Taylor and Garrett. And Chris, you're so funny when you said, tell me you're on Hinge without telling me you're on Hinge. Y'all are so funny. But, when people are dependent, like you said, Nicole, you have to come together and figure out how you all are going to mesh and figure everything else out together. And I'm glad that you guys are still going strong. Kudos to you guys. I am so happy for y'all. But I honestly am still hesitant of Taylor and Garrett. I was hesitant of them sticking together even when they met each other outside of the pod. I honestly don't feel like, I'm not sure if he is physically attracted to her. And that's why this experiment can be a little nerve-wracking, because it's like people, once again, they fall for each other and they say they love each other while they're in these pods, and then it's a little different once they are outside of the pods. But I really hope that they can work out if that's what they want for each other. I'm just as optimistic sometimes, but I also try to be realistic too.
Our next couple up is, I know I'm going to butcher his name, Ramses. I'm sorry. I watch with subtitles.
Just call him Rams.
Rams and Marissa. They're actually super fun and cute and sweet, and I really want to be hopeful for them because they're so excited right now, but they're giving me like fizzle out vibes. Like it's eventually going to wear on them. We're so perfect and bubbly and cute. But I mean, I hope they work. I hope they all work. That's just a blanket statement. But I feel like if anything, their issue might be that they think they don't have any issues and they don't talk about anything. And then the wedding comes near and they're like, wait, what? We haven't really discussed anything important. So I'm glad they're enjoying the honeymoon, and I'm glad they're getting friggy because that's really a good way to spend your honeymoon.
I don't know. It's weird, though. They are a very fun couple, but at the same time, they kind of look like they could be brother and sister.
Yeah.
So, which I don't know if that's weird or not. But they do have a lot of fun. I mean, Rams is ramming, so...
She's ramming.
But also, Ram, he's kind of got that little... If anybody watches Star Wars, that little Jedi tail thing on his hair. It cracks me up every time, so any of the nerds out there will understand what I'm saying. But
you should do that with your hair.
Yeah, we'll see. But no, I mean, honestly, I think they're a pretty fun couple. We'll see. It's obviously they're very physical, fast, compared to everybody else. But yeah, I don't know. We'll just see what happens with them.
Chris and Nicole, y'all always crack me up. That Chris should do the little tail with his hair. Chris, do that for Halloween, maybe. But I think that they are just the cutest couple, honestly. And Ramsey and Marissa, they do look like brother and sister. And it is good to have some type of fun in your relationships. You definitely want to laugh and keep the joy there. And it's also important to have, the intentional conversation. So as long as they find a balance that works for them, I do feel like they have a lot of potential. I know she mentioned when she first met them, like, I think this would be so cute. And I was literally thinking the same thing because they have that curly hair and pretty skin. And they'll just be some pretty unique babies. So I hope it works out for them.
All right. So our next couple is Tyler and Ashley A, but she is the only Ashley. So do we really need to keep saying Ashley A? They're very cute. They're very kind of bland, vanilla. I mean, there's not much going on with them. There's not really much drama. They seem very into each other. They seem like a really good kind of love story. But again, there's just not a whole lot of crazy memorable moments other than when he asked her to marry him and it was his birthday, he came in and everybody just went nuts. Like all the guys did. It was a really cool moment. He was so happy when that happened. But yeah, I mean, I think they're also a really good couple, but they haven't had any drama to this point.
And Kirsten, she kind of reminds me of you. I don't know why. Maybe it's the laugh, but it's a compliment to both of you. But the only thing I do remember about them, because honestly, they were so, like, nothing really stands out of my mind except for he said something about he's like, oh, you never know who's going to come out of the woodwork. Like, people might come out and say, you would hate him. And I know he was trying to make it as though he used to be kind of a dick maybe, and now he isn't. But that was kind of red flaggy for me. But at the same time, I know when we were filming, they kept harping on the quote unquote old Nicole and trying to make her sound like she was such a terror. And all she really was just younger me going through some shit. So I don't fault him for it, but it was strange the way he said it. But honestly, I hope it works out for them. But I don't really remember anything notable except, yeah, it was his birthday. And usually people who have birthdays in the pods have good marriages. Yeah. Maybe just Zach and Bliss. I don't know. We'll see.
I have hope for Tyler and Ashley. I do feel like they had great conversation while they're in the pod. And when they made their confessions as far as like how they feel when they're talking to one another, like Tyler said, Ashley makes him feel safe and happy and she brings him joy. And then she also said that he makes her feel like he truly likes her for the woman that she is. So I honestly feel like regardless of someone's past, if they have healed and if they have, if they've grown into a newer person and they're more mature, the past is the past, and I know sometimes we all have to leave the past in the past and become our best version of ourselves in the present time and for the future, and we continue to live, learn, and grow. So I'm hoping that they can live, learn, and grow with each other.
So the next couple is Tim and Alex, and they start off really good. I mean, he had a lot of beautiful stuff to say about his sisters, and gave her a bracelet from one of his sisters, and everything else. It was a very kind of sad story, but it was very endearing, and I was very emotional for them. But after they got out of the pods, I mean, there's a lot of red flags. She just seems annoyed by everything that he does, like hates his style, doesn't like what he does, doesn't like that he jokes. I don't know. It's just very weird. And then apparently some huge argument happened where it seems like she was the one that was really out of line, even though he ended up like raising his voice, but they slept in separate rooms. So I don't have a whole lot of hope for these two. I don't think they're going to make it personally. He seems like whatever happened, he can't really get over from the looks of it from the last one. So we'll see. I mean, I don't have much hope for these two though. I think they're kind of heading down a path where they'll say no.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I felt like from the start, it was so sweet about his sisters, how much he loves them and cared for them, and so tragic that they've passed. But I did feel like from the start, he was putting so much pressure on her. Like, you're going to be I'm going to be able to give my parents a new daughter. And essentially, like, she needs to be this daughter figure that they've lost. And I know that would freak me the hell out. And I also feel like with that fight, I understand like cameras are not rolling 24/7, especially when you're in the honeymoon phase and you don't have cameras in your actual room. But that is an example where we, the people, want producer intervention. I want the producers to make them discuss exactly what happened in that fight. I want them to be diary camming what was going on in that fight. I want producers in that room, maybe some sort of expert. I know it's a different show, but someone to advise them like, hey, talk it out. Like, do not let him sleep in another room unless her safety or his safety was violated or they felt uncomfortable, because you're setting them up to just be really angry with each other and not inclined to work things out. Like, let me on the show as this expert. Again, I know they don't have them on Love is Blind, but I think they need to. It sounds like it's a fight we don't know the details of, and they're escalating it to the point where he sucked out of the room and now he doesn't seem to want to forgive her. So even if she was completely in the wrong, which we have no idea, no way of knowing, I don't feel like they're inclined to work it out. And I feel like that's a mistake. But I also don't feel like they're destined to make it to the altar.
I also think that she kind of actually reminds me a little bit of that JP guy who got very awkward when the camera's around him. So maybe that's part of it too, because she seems like she's just kind of silent. And that's kind of how JP was for that one season. I think it was, two seasons ago, where once they were out of the pods and actually filming, he just said how he didn't like being around cameras and got very quiet. She kind of seems the same.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
It's so crazy because I felt like Tim and Alex, I felt like she did not like him as soon as they were able to meet each other outside the pods, and he was too playful and she was turned off immediately. So I will say red flag, red flag, red flag, flag on play. But it is, Nicole, you're so right about how it should be full on produced and how the experts should be there to be a resource for them in the tough times, because it is challenging sometimes when you don't know how to articulate your thoughts and exactly what you're feeling and how to handle whatever situation is at hand with your partner. So I don't see them staying together. And I knew that as soon as they met each other. I was like, this is not going to work out, because he's joking and now she's turned off. And it's the small little things. Like, if you're not attracted to someone, it's one thing. All that it takes is for you to be unattracted to them. They can do one thing and that's it. So I don't have any hope for this couple either, unfortunately. Hopefully they're able to find love and someone who loves them as they are.
And our last couple, even though we've kind of touched upon them, is Hannah and Nick. I don't see them even making it to the altar. I think they're just not ready for this type of experiment. And I think they're trying so hard to prove that they are. And they're saying, like, I love you, I want to make this work. But they're doing everything in their power to not actually show they're trying to make this work. And we haven't really seen much of them yet. So maybe I'm wrong. But even the way he was like, I don't want to talk about sex. I have a reputation, fine, like totally fine. Chris and I were the same way where we didn't really want to talk about it on camera. But it's almost as if they changed their minds once they heard other people talking about it and wanted to brag, because you see them in the corner like, we didn't do it 3 times. Tee hee hee hee. Like, it just screams, young relationship to me. And not that young people can't have a great, successful, happy marriage, but when you fall in love through a wall, I don't think the baseline should be like, people can have a good relationship. It's like, you need to be ready. You need to be mature. You need to be able to work through your shit. And I don't see that happening.
I mean, I think in this one, Hannah's trying to talk herself into it because she doesn't seem that into him. Especially, she was very disappointed from the minute she saw him because she was expecting a big, burly, like, football player, and he wasn't. So I think she was very disappointed from that moment, and then she was kind of making comments about that. Then she talked herself into it seemed like. And then he did the whole duck race thing, which she absolutely hated. And
so silly.
It was so dumb. I'm like, just let the man do it. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But she seemed,
you're on your honeymoon. Just be silly.
But she seemed so embarrassed by him, and it's kind of ridiculous. It was a fun, silly, in the moment thing, and she should just went along with it, or just not gave him so much grief over it. And then I didn't hear the one woman call her a jealous bitch, but apparently Hannah
they could have just not shown us.
But yeah, and then on top of that, then she leaves a list out for him of the things that she doesn't like about him. So I don't know. I don't have much hope for these two. I think that they should call it quits now because they just don't seem good at all for each other. And I mean, if Leo would have ended up with Hannah, it would have been the same result. So
yeah, I just don't think she's ready.
I totally agree with the both of you. Hannah's not ready for a relationship. She is younger, and she already created an image in her head of what she thought that Nick would look like. I will agree with you too, Chris. She was just disappointed because he didn't have that physical look that she was looking for, so she is not attracted to him. So no, she's not going to participate in any type of event with him because she does not like him. And I love that you and Nicole are such team players. Nicole, you're like, she should have just done it with him. It's like, okay, for what? She's not interested in him. So no, she's not participating. But we all know that this couple is not going to be a successful couple. And I agree with you too, Chris, when you said that if it would have been Leo, it would have been the same type of scenario. She wouldn't have been interested in him. She wouldn't have been physically attracted to him. And I honestly feel like Hannah has been on a roller coaster ride because she was also undecided with Nick because she was second guessing him before they even came out of the pods. And at first she said she didn't want to talk to him anymore and she wanted to focus on Leo. And then she went back to Nick, said she made a mistake. And it was just, the up and down since then. And then when Nick had asked her, he was like, so you listen to the other people? Those are the people you listen to help you make your decision about me? I feel like that kind of had upset him a little bit. But I feel like Nick and Hannah both have some growing to do. So they probably just need to live life a little longer and kind of focus on themselves and who they truly are and who they truly want to be and what they want for themselves in a relationship.
Truly, we have so many more opinions, and I'm sure there will be so much more to unpack as the season goes on. But thank you for listening to this special episode of D-List Diaries. We will have Gina back next week, even though Chris makes a wonderful fill-in. If you ever want to hear our opinions on this show or any of the other ones we watched, just let us know because we have really good commentary. But thank you for listening to an episode of D-List Diaries. Reach out to us on Instagram and let us know your thoughts on the show and what questions you have from the other side of the filming perspective as people who have been on a similar show. So that's all, folks. Bye.
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 At Highland, we're all about celebrating little wins and little ways to innovate digital processes. There's no customer pain point too small for us to help with. Maybe that's why more than half of the Fortune 100 looks to Highland to connect their content and data, improve processes, and turn little efficiencies into big wins for their customers and clients. Highland, intelligent content solutions for innovators everywhere at highland.com.
Be ready no matter what the temperature with Crop Metcalf's $99 heating and cooling system check. Call 1-800-GO-CROP or visit cropmetcalf.com.
Crop Metcalf is the one with 5 stars.
Crop Metcalf, home of the 5-star technician.
Zaxby's Sensation Salad is so much more than a plain old salad. It's a salad, which begs the question, at what point does a salad stop being a salad and become a salad? Is it when you add Zaxby's fried chicken to it? Crunchy wontons? Asian slaw? Citrus vinaigrette? Teriyaki glaze? Sweet and spicy sauce? Or is it when you top it all with a handmade perfectly fried egg roll? Without a doubt, the egg roll. The Sensation Salad, only at Zaxby's.